Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of League Chat with the Stat. Thank you for joining me once again this week. And how good was Week 2 Finals football? Another phenomenal week in the NRL this weekend. And look, let's get straight into it. Let's discuss all things of the Week 2 of the Finals. Now, the Raiders 22 defeating the Roosters 18 and eliminating the Roosters out of the competition. Now, a complete performance from the Canberra Raiders. I thought the forwards played out of their skin. I thought they were just very, very good. Particularly the starting ones in Josh Papali and Joseph Tapine, putting on very big performances and when it mattered the most, I believe. Now, the Roosters have just been in a bit of a downfall in very recent times. They couldn't recover from that loss of 60 points to 8 a few weeks ago in the last round of the regular season, which is very disappointing to see, considering that the Roosters had been very, very good all year. Now, the last month or so had kind of rattled the Roosters, and I thought it would all change, getting Jake Friend back into hooker to replace Freddie Lussick. Obviously, that didn't happen, and Raiders got that roll on 16-0 within the first 20 to 25 minutes. It was enough to hold out the Roosters. Now, the Roosters in that game had Kyle Flanagan get an injection in his shoulder. They had Siasiwa Takiaho go off with an MCL injury. A couple of men bruised and battered from that performance. Now, but we've got to talk about the Raiders here. I mean, they were just on song. They didn't have a referee to kind of screw them around this time, and everything they did was just phenomenal. They broke the Roosters line a few times, which is something that if I said to 6 weeks ago, I wouldn't have noticed from the Roosters, but it's become a repeated thing over the last few weeks for the Chooks, having their line broken up the middle a couple of times as well. And look, the Roosters just couldn't click into gear in time. They did go through a late fight back towards the end of that game. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Raiders getting to hold them out. The three-peat dream is over for the Chooks. We don't know the next time we'll see the three-peat happen between any other club. But look, it was just, not a great performance from the Roosters again, to concede that many set restarts early on and to have a few uncharacteristic errors, uncharacteristic errors from a few players themselves, including James Tedesco. I believe he copped a knock onto his MCL as well, and he fought the whole 80 minutes, tried his best, a couple errors, and that one leading to the last try for the Raiders. Was the last game for Mitchell Orbison, playing 306 games for the Chooks, and unfortunately not capping off his year with a grand final victory. Bowed out 22 points to 18 to the Raiders. Now, the standouts for me were Josh Papali. As I said, 18 runs, 189 metres, 73 post-contact metres, with a try, a line break, 7 tackle breaks, 3 offloads and 26 tackles. Joseph Tapine, 16 runs, 172 metres, a try, line break, 9 tackle breaks and 28 tackles. As I said, those two men really stood out for me, as well as the boys in the back, especially Charles Nicol-Klokstad racking up 276 metres at the back there as well. Boyd Corner, I thought was the best one out there. 15 runs, 168 metres, a tackle break and 28 tackles. And I thought Sonny Bill coming off the bench, which is potentially his last game for the Roosters, I thought he was pretty solid. 12 runs, 104 metres, and getting through about 25 odd tackles as well, with a tackle break and an offload. And I thought Jake Friend, very busy all night, 61 tackles, doing his best defensively to inspire the Chooks. Again, wasn't enough. And with the Raiders beating the Roosters this weekend, as I said last week, it's sudden death. What it means now is that the Roosters have been eliminated for the 2020 season. Now, the next game, the Rabbitohs 38 defeating the Eels 24. And a very interesting start to that game. The Eels started off very strong. Had the Rabbitohs at 2-0 early on for a good little period there. And then once Rabbitohs fought back with 2 quick tries, the Eels just clicked out of nowhere. Clint Gutherson, the man, once again, 3 tries in 8 minutes, 2 to him and having him assist for George Jennings as well. I thought Gutherson, that 5-minute span he had there, that 5-10 minute span was very good from him. However, when it needed to happen the most, when Eels were behind that scoreline, he didn't really click in. And it was very disappointing to see. I thought Dylan Brown was okay. I thought he did well second game back from injury. But I thought, after that little period and after he hit half-time, obviously with Eels leading 18-10 at half-time, was very disappointing for them to come out and only put on an extra 6 points. But the Rabbitohs, look, you've got to give it to them. They clicked into another gear in that second half. Bennett definitely did have some serious words to those boys, and they just took off. Another phenomenal performance from Damien Cook, his best one of the year by far. I thought that, they started to fight back, the Rabbitohs. They got that try early in the second half. And it got to 18 all, and this is the moment we need to talk about. This is what defined the game for the Eels, and it was very disappointing to see they couldn't rebound from this. It was when the Eels were down 20 points to 18. Mitchell Moses gets a penalty kick from in front. All he needs to do is convert it. Comes off the post. Rabbitohs run 80 metres and then end up scoring a try. So instead of the points being 20 points all, with about 25 minutes to go, it became 26 points to 18. And that was it. The Rabbitohs just ran with it. Although Eels did score 6 more points, it wasn't enough. But I thought the Rabbitohs, as I said, were electric. Damien Cook fired those boys up. And yeah, they did enough to hold off the Eels. Now, with that being said, the Rabbitohs have been averaging a try every 10 minutes in the last 6 weeks. It's amazing how when Wayne Bennett couldn't join the bubble for 2 weeks and having to isolate, it's amazing with those sessions that he did over Zoom and how much it transformed their attack. Phenomenal. I can't explain how well the Rabbitohs have been going. And the lineup they've got this week, it's only going to get better. And this round of football is only going to get better here. So the Eels bow out. Very disappointing. As I said, I think the Eels are regretting re-signing Brad Arthur with that 1-year extension, hearing that they could be looking at a new coach in 2022, but still very early days. But I thought for the Para boys, I thought Junior Paulo and Regan CampbellGillard definitely killed it. Junior Paulo, 19 runs, 155 metres, 62 post-contact metres, with 2 line break assists, a try assists, 3 tackle breaks, 3 offloads and 25 tackles in a 65-minute performance from Junior Paulo. And Regan CampbellGillard, no nonsense here, 15 runs, 157 metres and 22 tackles. And they were the ones that stood out for the Eels. But I thought, as I said, for the Rabbitohs, I thought their back 5 stood out. I thought the halves controlled really well between Cody Walker and Adam Reynolds. And as I said, with Cook at hooker and the forwards leading the charge, I thought they were just instrumental in that second half. As I said, it was a slow start in the beginning there, but they definitely clicked into gear and ran away with that game. Now, what this means is that with the Rabbitohs beating the Eels are now also eliminated from the 2020 Premiership season. What this will mean is that the Panthers, who won against the Roosters in the first week of the finals, will now take on the Rabbitohs for a spot in the grand final. And the Melbourne Storm will take on the Canberra Raiders. And the winner of that game will also make it through to the grand final, with the other team being eliminated. Now, let's go through to the news around the NRL world. A lot to get through for this week. Now, Charlie Staines, the Penrith winger, has re-signed at the Panthers for 3 more years, rejecting interest from Bulldogs and the Tigers to stay at the club. Now, as I said, what that could mean is that it could mean that Josh Mansell will be at a new club in 2022. I know that the Bulldogs are looking into that one a lot closely, so it'll be interesting to see the developments from there. Now, Lynn Anderson, Paul Dunn and John Ballasty have stood down from the Bulldogs board. Instead of having it to go for a vote, they've decided to finally stand down. And John Curry will take the spot of Lynn Anderson as the interim Bulldogs chairman for the time being. Now, Wayne Collins, who was the assistant coach to Michael Maguire at the South Sydney Rabbitohs when they won the 2014 Premiership, will look to be his assistant coach once again at the West Tigers. This means that Michael Maguire has rejected interest in trying to get someone like Shane Flanagan or Simon Wolford into his coaching ranks, has decided to look within and grab Wayne Collins and trying to see if they can grab another premiership for the Tigers in the years to come, the same way they did for the Roosters. Now, a report came out that the Bulldogs were looking at the developments of Matt Moylan, Aaron Woods and Josh Dugan. That's all rubbish. Matt Moylan is overrated and overpaid for absolutely no reason. We had Aaron Woods for 6 months and then let him go, and Josh Dugan is too injury prone. So I don't believe the Bulldogs will be looking at the rebuild in those 3 players, but that's what was brought to my attention. Now, Jamie Soward, the former Dragons 5'8" and the 2011 Premiership winner for the Saints, has signed on with the Dragons in a consultancy role. Obviously, he has a good relationship with Anthony Griffin there, and will definitely be providing some experience for the halves as well in training them. And for the Melbourne Storm, Christian Welch has re-signed for 2 years, rejecting the Dragons and rejecting the Tigers and a few other clubs to stay at the Melbourne Storm. He will re-sign to 2022. Max King has re-signed to 2021. And they've also added Jake Howarth, 18-year-old kid from Queensland, to join the development squad for the Melbourne Storm. Now, Steve Georgalis, the interim Bulldogs coach that finished out the season at the Bulldogs, has signed with the Cowboys as an assistant coach alongside Dean Young. and will be the assistant to the head coach there, Todd Payton. Finally good to see George Ellis get a run in at another club. Now, Kevin Walters is going to start cleaning out some of the Brisbane Broncos players that are in that squad. He's made it very clear that it doesn't have to be those fringe first graders that he'll be getting rid of. It'll be those that are consistently performing. Now, one of those that's been brought to my attention is Matt Lodge. Now, under Seabold, he re-signed on a 3-year contract and then decided to take up a 2-year player option. So it's a 5-year contract that he will sign for. Now, Kevin Walters needs to have a discussion with him. He was obviously, Matt Lodge being out most of the year this year. We'll see where his head's at. And it could also mean, with Walters being in charge, he could also get rid of him. It's been very clear that Joe Ofahengaue has been shopped around to other clubs, such as the Dragons. And Kevin Walters is not mucking around. He believes that the Broncos can get back to the top as soon as next year, and he's looking to make a lot of changes to make that happen. Now, the Canberra Raiders are set to sign Caleb Aikens. He is the stand-in fullback for Dylan Edwards at the Penrith Panthers. It was actually playing very good football before Dylan Edwards came back from injury, and I think he'd be a handy backup to Charles Nicoll-Klokstad at the Canberra Raiders. Now, developing story here, Blake Green, who signed on after he did his ACL injury, signed with the Bulldogs for a year, is now considering retirement and considering taking a coaching role at the Newcastle Knights. This could mean that it will leave the Bulldogs without an experienced half, which could mean that we'd be looking on the doors of Benji Marshall, one to look out for. Now, speaking of the halves and the Bulldogs, the Bulldogs approached Chad Townsend about 7-8 weeks ago to see how long he had left in his contract, which was 2 years, to see whether there'd be any interest in bringing him over to the Dogs, and that was rejected by Chad Townsend's management and the Cronulla Sharks. Sione Matautia, the Newcastle Knights centre and second rower, has been linked to a move to St Helens alongside Joseph Paulo and Lachlan Coote and Kevin Nagama and players like that. Now, the Tigers have been linked to Joseph Suwali, the highly sought teen that wants to achieve everything within the next 5 years. Now, he'd been made an offer to Rabbitohs, and Rabbitohs offered him a 4-year deal. He's only 16, by the way, and he wants to have a clause in his contract to sign a 4-year contract, but then leave at any time to take up a deal to go and train for the Olympics. Now, the Rabbitohs, as I understand, are very keen to release him, and they don't want him for that final year. The Roosters have come knocking, and the Rabbitohs are very reluctant to release him to a side like the Roosters, being their arch rivals. And so Tigers are watching this with a lot of interest there. Now, the big story from the weekend was Michael Jennings, the Parramatta centre, being suspended and stood down after testing positive to 2 banned substances. And it definitely was not something that they were looking to happen to the club, especially before the game against the Rabbitohs. Now, he's been stood down indefinitely. Michael Jennings is looking to clear his name, and it's believed he has not taken any of these banned substances. Now, if he does get suspended, that'll be the end of his career, coming out 298 games across the Panthers, Roosters, and the Eels, which is very sad to see. I know Michael pretty well, having spent some time with him. Very genuine bloke, and someone that, in my mind, I wouldn't think would be looking to take those sort of substances, especially towards the end of his career. So it's a developing story. We just need to see what happens there. But that's the results of that positive test to Michael Jennings. Now, Patrick Herbert, the Warriors back, has signed a 1-year deal with the Gold Coast Titans just to the end of 2021. Gives the Gold Coast a bit of depth. And with his family being in Queensland anyway, it kind of works out very well for the Titans there. Now, Tristan Saylor, the son of the legend Wendell Saylor, was charged over the weekend with sexual assault. And not a good look for the league. It hasn't even been a week since we've been out of the bubble, and there's already controversy. And I'm really hoping and praying that this is the only case from the players being out of the bubble now. But look, he was out with mates on Friday night, and a lot of things went down, which I'm not going to get into. That's in the hands of the court right now. And he has been, as I said, charged with sexual assault. He was granted bail. And he'll be looking to go back to court in a few weeks to see what's going on and what the sentence looks to be. Although he has been released from the Dragons are still looking after his welfare and being, and will continue to provide support for Tristan Saylor and his family. Now, the Parramatta Eels have announced 11 players to leave the club. Now, as we know, you know some of these, having mentioned in previous podcasts. Kane Evans has signed with the Warriors. Stefano Utoikamanu going to the Tigers. David Gower will be retiring and taking an off-field role with the Parramatta Eels. The most interesting one is Penny Terapo. Hasn't been seen much this year by many, and he's decided to take an indefinite break from the league. Not sure, he's battling a few health issues at the moment. Now, Andrew Davey was another player that's released. He's also signed a 2-year deal with the Manly Sea Eagles, and he'll be off contract there 2022. Now, the rest of the players that were released, Reece Davies, Brad Takairangi, and Jamin Salmon have been released, and it could be handy pickups as depth to other clubs. And the 2 players that were part of the developmental squad for the Parramatta Eels, Watson Heleda and Kyle Schneider, who have also been released. Now, Richie Kenner will be looking set to re-sign with the Brisbane Broncos for another 2 years. I believe he's a big fan of Kevin Walters, and Kevin Walters is a fan of him. So with Kenner playing a lot of games this year, which was very unexpected, he kept that wing position his own. And so he'll be looking to re-sign with the Bronx for another 2 years. With the Bulldogs, they are set to sign Jack Hetherington on a 2-year deal. Now, having him play the way he's played for the Warriors this year, he would be a player that we would need. The only problem with that, he has been suspended quite a bit, so if Trent Barrett can actually tame him and keep him down and control that aggression, he would be a fantastic acquisition for the Bulldogs. And the developing story at the moment is the Roosters rumoured to part ways with Kyle Flanagan. Now, he's been put on a lot of pressure ever since taking over Cooper Cronk at the beginning of the season. I thought he's had a bit of a decent season. The Roosters fans and members don't believe he has. The board are looking to part ways with him and don't be looking to re-sign him after his contract expires in 2021. Now, the Bulldogs have made inquiries. Trent Barrett has made some phone calls and are very keen to bring him in as soon as next year. With Roosters having Sam Walker in the ranks and Lachlan Lamb as well as Drew Hutchinson, it could be a very interesting time for the Roosters to see who they'll go with next. Now, with that being said as well, I do believe it's a little unfair with the pressure that Kyle Flanagan has copped. If they're going to give that over to Sam Walker, who is talked about as the next big thing, he's 18 years old, it'll be a cause of concern if they look to get rid of him as well. Now, I've decided to create a new segment up until the State of Origin series happens. So this is all the State of Origin talk coming to you now as a new acquisition to League Chat with the Stat. Now, the following players have been added to the New South Wales squad after the completion of the rounds on the weekend. Daniel Tupou, James Tedesco, Angus Crichton, Boyd Cordner, Luke Keary from the Roosters all have been added to the squad. Now, for the Parramatta Eels, Clint Gutherson, Regan CampbellGillard, Nathan Brown, and Junior Paulo. They've all been named in the New South Wales extended squad. Now, I believe for the Maroons, Kalen Ponga is actually out of the State of Origin series. He does require surgery on his shoulder, which is a little sad to see, considering how well he has gone for the Maroons in previous years. Now, with that being said as well, speaking of Regan CampbellGillard, he has come out and said he's unsure whether he would be looking to play in the State of Origin series. He mentioned that his body has taken a lot of battering, but he's also mentioned that the welfare and he hates being in the bubble. The only problem I have with that is it should be a privilege and an honour to play for the Maroons. Now, it's very sad for the Blues as well. Now, it's very sad to see that Regan CampbellGillard's out here making excuses about the bubble life and not wanting to enter into another bubble. Now, State of Origin, we want players in there that are passionate and want to represent their state. If you don't want to play and if you don't have that desire, you shouldn't play. Kind of like when Daniel Tupou a few years back got selected in the squad and said, look, I'd rather not play. I want George Taufua to play instead. I'm under the impression we don't need players like that. There are players that selected that want to play for New South Wales and will sacrifice needing to be in the bubble. But my advice to RCG, if you don't want to be a part of it, then withdraw your name from the squad. It's not worth you having your name there and taking up opportunity for someone else if you don't want to be there. So that was all from New South Wales. And on the Queensland side, they've named a strong 15-man squad. The following names here: Jai Arrow, AJ Brimson, Moriaki Fotuaika, Philip Sammy, those for the Gold Coast Titans. For the North Queensland Cowboys is Valentine Holmes and Cohen Hess. And for the Brisbane Broncos, Xavier Coates and Patrick Carrigan were the ones named for the Brisbane Broncos. For the Newcastle Knights, Edric Lee, Heimel Hunt and Kalen Ponga, as I said, who has been ruled out, were all named as well. For the St. George Illawarra Dragons, Ben Hunt and Josh Kerr were also named onto the run-on squad. Harry Grant was named as well, going between Tigers and Storm. and Daly Terry Evans. Now, obviously, the names will continue to be added as the teams will be eliminated from the competition. But that's a 15-man squad they've named so far, and Wayne Bennett is starting to form a decent squad there. Now, let's get into the week 3 of the finals and everything finals related this week. Now, it is a preliminary final, and the winner of these 2 games will verse each other next week in the grand final. Now, the Melbourne Storm will be taking on the Canberra Raiders. For the Storm, Tom Eisenhuth will be taking the spot of Chris Lewis on the bench. Now, Cameron Munster has been named despite that knee injury. He'll be in the number 6 jersey, and named the 18th man is Dale Finucane, who could be a big inclusion should he be able to get over that calf injury. He's been out for about 8 weeks now, and his inclusion, his experience in that pack would be exceptional for them. Now, for the Raiders, they have named the same squad that beat the Roosters, and they are 1-17 this weekend. It's only getting harder week by week to see who will win. I backed the Raiders last week, which was a bit of a fluke, I thought, but with the way Raiders played, I reckon they could be the only team to knock off the Melbourne Storm. So I'm going to back the Raiders once again to make another charge into the grand final. Now for the Panthers, they'll be taking on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Now, as you know, the Penrith Panthers have Viliame Kikau suspended for the preliminary final, failing to overthrow that dangerous contact charge labelled at him at the judiciary. So Kurt Capewell will take his spot, and Spencer Leniu will join the bench. And for the Rabbitohs, they are unchanged and are 1-17. This game is going to go down to the wire. I really cannot pick. I might have a pick for you guys later in the week in a potential special video for you guys to see who I'd go with. Obviously, Panthers have been in red-hot form, having won 16 straight, but the Rabbitohs in the last 7 weeks have completely changed up their attack and have scored the most points in their attack. So I'll get an answer to you guys later in the week. I'm leaning towards the Rabbitohs, but I can't really give you a definite answer on whether the Panthers or the Rabbitohs would be winning the game this week. It's going to be a tight one, and one weekend I'm looking forward to seeing. Now, guys, thank you so much for joining me again on another episode of League Chat with the Stat. As you guys know, we are on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. I've finally created an Instagram account, so now I will be on Instagram. So like, follow, share, subscribe to that Instagram page and share it around with your friends and family. You guys already know that we are on different streaming sites as well. And as you said, I can go through them again. So Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Alexa, and iHeartRadio, just to name a few. I appreciate your support thus far with the season coming to a close, but don't worry. As the season comes to a close, there will be more weekly podcasts happening for you guys. Again, thank you so much. Thank you for backing me last week in the 2 from 2. Now, hopefully get 2 more 2 this week again as well. And all the best to the teams coming up, performing to get into the grand final. Have a good week, guys. Enjoy the week of football. We'll see you next week. You take care.